G'day guys, footy tipping's back in 2024 and today we'll be going through my opening round 0 AFL tips and predictions. But obviously we've only got the 4 games for opening round, so before that we've actually got a few things that I got to go through ahead of the tipping competition and all just the tips videos in general for 2024. So let's start off with the fact that I've got a new footy tipping competition in 2024. Every year I like to change things up so I get more of a true reflection of who that year is actually going to be tipping. And obviously this time round I've got the 2024 official competition, so the link's down below in the description and the pinned comment. As we speak right now, we've got 158 members, and I've literally only just promoted it for like a few hours, so already pretty good. I know last year we got 1,420 members, so anyone who was in that old 2023 comp, I've deleted it, so you've got to join the new one if you want to still be tipping in 2024. I never really announced the winners or anything like that for last year, so I want to just quickly go through them now real quick. So the winner ended up being Saskatoon with 158. Oscar Tucson got 156 in second. And then a couple with 155, Tote Goat, Pasindu, and then Angus Kidman. They did end up with getting the top 5. And I can't remember, honestly, what the prizes were for last year, even if there were prizes, to be honest with you. So if these people are watching the video, don't hesitate and contact me about that, and I can try and, work something out. Because to be honest with you, last year at the end of 2023, I sort of just put it off, the footy tips. I never really announced it. But this year is different because for the 2024 tips, there'll be a few prizes. So let's go through the prizes that I've got. First place receives $300. Second place receives $150. Third place receives $75. Fourth place receives $50, and fifth place receives $30. So there are 5 prizes, as well as a mid-season winner at the end of round 12. Whoever's on top wins $100. So the comp rules, though, as you can see down below, they've got to respond by like a week after the end of the footy tips. Otherwise, we're going to give it to the next best, because I honestly want to actually give away prizes. And too many times I've had winners just ghost me and never say anything, which just makes it a little bit crappy. And as well as a footy tipping comp for 2024, we've also got a fantasy league, an open fantasy league as well. I don't do fantasy normally, but this year I'm trying to get into fantasy. I haven't even made my team yet, but I might as well start the league now and create it for you guys to join. So the code is up on screen, and the link is down below to join the fantasy league. Now this is how the big calls and punishments are going to work ahead of the 2024 AFL season. Now just like in previous years, every single game of the 2024 season, I'll be predicting a big call that I reckon could happen within a game. And if I don't get a certain amount of them correct in that week, then I'll have to do a punishment. Over the last 3 years of me doing these, I've ended up doing some stupid things, such as singing in the library, dancing outside the MCG, and even shaving my head. But of course, not every single punishment that I was meant to complete actually got done. I think around 62% I ended up completing, so I sort of feel a bit guilty in doing so. So for 2024, we're going to be changing things up a little bit, and instead of having to get at least 3 big calls correct every single week, I'll be spinning a wheel with a chance of it needing either 1, 2, 3, or 4 big calls correct in a normal round of tipping. And of course, to make sure that I don't rig the wheel, I will spin it the week before on one of my AFL live reaction streams, so you guys can see exactly what I got. That will obviously determine it to see how many big calls I have to avoid for that week. And for the buy rounds, instead of ranging from 1 to 4, they will be ranging from 1 to 3. Now, just like in previous years, to determine what punishment I need to do if I don't reach the certain amount of big calls, it is of course determined by you guys. So you guys have the chance to leave a comment down below, and the comment with the most likes will be the punishment that I have to do if I don't get the amount of big calls correct. Remember though, I have the final say, so the comment has to of course be appropriate and something that I would overall feel comfortable doing. So for example, ask me to jump off the Westgate Bridge, and then getting all your mates in the group chat to like that comment doesn't mean that I'm going to end up having to do it, of course. Also, any comment involving the Saints, for example, preventing me from watching any of their games this year, will also not be done either, as instead I'll pick the comment that got the second most likes, or the third or fourth or whatever, until it's one that I can actually do. But here's the catch though, because in other years obviously I didn't end up getting all these punishments completed. If I don't get every single punishment completed that I have to do by October 31st 2024, then I'll have to do a massive forfeit. And the forfeit for this year will be having to do a 100-hour straight live stream. Let me just tell you that I've done a 24-hour stream before, and that was bad enough. Well, anyways, hopefully you do enjoy the 2024 tipping videos ahead of the season, and it's going to be a heap of fun. The big calls and punishments will be happening this week, though, for opening round. However, because there's the 4 games, I'll only be needing to do 1. Let's start off with the tips for 2024, and the first game of 2024 in opening round, the first game of the season. A little bit strange, though. Sydney taking on Melbourne at the SCG. Now, this is going to be, I think, one of the tighter games of opening round so far. Initially, I was definitely more skewed towards the Swans, like in my predictions, if you saw them, I definitely had the D's being one of those sides to dip, and I think they still might dip. And obviously with Sydney, I think they're a side that you'd probably expect to rise given their acquisitions they've had in the trade period, And the fact that if it wasn't for a lot of the injuries they had in 2023, they probably would have risen up the ladder a little bit more. Now, this game, we've got obviously a few injuries for Sydney. We've got Luke Parker and Taylor Adams out in the middle, which is going to be a bit of a, it'll affect them a little bit. In Melbourne, they have Clayton Oliver returning, which I was a bit surprised by. I really didn't think that he'd make the return, considering he didn't have the greatest preseason. I thought it'd take a couple more weeks to get back into it. But see, he seems to be playing, so it means that Melbourne probably should have that upper edge in at the midfield. The fact that Max Gawn was really dominant against Carlton. I thought they actually had a pretty impressive preseason, the Ds. More impressive than I actually was originally expecting after that Richmond game. Yeah, I see this being a really difficult game to play. I think Cozzy Pickett's also out for Melbourne through that suspension, which could make a difference. To be fair, the Ds have a pretty good record at the SCG and normally fare alright against the Swans. Well, weirdly enough, they fare better against the Swans away. But I think opening round, you're definitely going to give the sides that have that home ground advantage more of the chance. And even though the odds are pretty much even with $1.92 to $1.88, I think there's a reason why 70% of the tipsters are going for Sydney. I think Sydney are just the side this year that I'm going to slightly trust a bit more at home. And I'm not too sure about Melbourne. Melbourne could 100% come out the blocks here and get that, I wouldn't even call upset win, but get that win, proving the doubt is wrong. I was actually originally going to go the Swans by more here, but I think this is going to be one of those games. Pretty high scoring. Could see 15 goals combined in the first half and plenty of lead changes. I'm going to go the Swans to win the first game, though, of the season and opening round by, I'm going to go 9 points with my big call that there'll be 9 or more lead changes throughout the game. The next game of the round, we've got Brisbane taking on Carlton at the Gabba, the prelim final rematch. And to be honest with you, I think the most lopsided game of the round in terms of tips. I think this is probably the easiest one to tip, given especially what we've seen the last few days with a few of the injuries. Sam Walsh now having another interrupted, start to the season. I thought he had a really fit preseason and all that, and then he comes with an injury again, so he's not going to be playing the first few weeks, like he did last year, missing the first game of the season. And Jacob Weeding as well. He's a big pillar down defence, to the fact that they're going to be without him as well. I thought that against Melbourne, they were pretty disappointing, the Blues. I know it's just a practice game, but I thought their defensive stocks were a little bit thin. I thought they got beaten in the midfield by quite some bit, and up forward, they weren't really complementing each other well. So I feel like Carlton definitely need a big game out of their two big forwards in Curnow and Mackay. Brisbane had a really good preseason. They're a side a lot of people think are going to bounce back from that grand final loss and win the flag. And I could definitely see it happening. I could 100% see it happening. They're playing at the Gabba. They love playing there. They beat the Blues there in the last game for the prelims. And they've only lost one game there in the last 2 years. Obviously going a complete season undefeated in 2023. Overall, it's going to be really difficult not to see the Lions win this game. I felt like maybe if the Blues had Walsh and were a little bit more convincing during the preseason, that they could have put up a bit more of a fight. But I think preseason form tells you a little bit, considering it's just a 1 week gap. Like, they play 1 week preseason and the next week they're playing. I think Carlton, they're not going to be 100% ready for this one. And I think Brisbane at the Gabba had a good preseason. I think they should win this game. And they could win it big. I'm going to go 31 points, though. I think the Lions should get this one done relatively comfortably. For the Blues to win, it needs to be a shootout, I believe, because I just don't think their defense is good enough. And they just need Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow to have big games, I think. But a big call for this game will be that the Lions kick 5 more consecutive goals at any stage throughout the game. The next game we have on the Saturday, 4:20 p.m. time slot, the twilight time slot, in the Gold Coast. We've got Gold Coast taking on Richmond. A bit of a rivalry in this clash, considering it is Damien Hardwick up against his former club in the coaching department. And I don't think this is as one-sided as I originally thought it was going to be. Gold Coast had a very disappointing preseason, to be completely honest. They looked quite average against Brisbane, and against GWS, they looked like they weren't really very competitive. With all the expectation that the Suns have this season of making the 8, and me putting them in the 8, that they need to win this game. I feel like the pressure is so much more on the Gold Coast Suns than Richmond. Richmond, I think, are a side this year that haven't really got many expectations. They're probably expected to finish bottom 4. They, got a new coach under Adam Uze, and realistically, they just have the freedom to play however they want, really. New game plan, new game style. And honestly, it's a free hit for the Tigers, which is why I could see them maybe winning this game, because if the Suns can't really succumb to the pressure, I don't think they'll make finals. If they can't win a game at home against a side that might finish bottom 4, you'd almost draw the line through their season straight away in terms of finals. That's how much I think this game means to the Suns. So I think because of that, I think the Suns probably do find a way to win this game. Richmond are still without Tom Lynch. I think he needs to come back as soon as possible, because Richmond, even though they looked all right for bits in the preseason games, I thought their foreline, particularly against Collingwood, was a bit concerning, to be honest with you. They just can't score enough, I don't think. And the Suns, I think they're going to be good enough with, Lukosius, Ben King. They're going to make Heritage Bank a fortress, I think, this year, the Suns. So, I don't know. I think this is going to be one of those games where it's going to be neck and neck for most of it, for probably the middle of the game. But I think either the start of the game or the end of the game is where the Suns really take control, and I see that being the case. So I'm going to go the Suns to win this game by 21 points, with a big call that the Suns lead by 20 or more points at quarter time. And then we have the final game of the opening round. Again on the Saturday, 7:30 p.m. time slot. We got the Giants taking on Collingwood in another prelim final rematch. And this is becoming one of the better modern day rivalries between these two clubs. We've seen quite a few close games between these clubs in finals before. And I think this is going to be no exception. I think this is going to be the pick of the bunch in terms of the games, saving the best game till last. And two sides I expect to maybe make top four. I mean, the Giants, they're a bit of a mystery side because we all know how well they finished off the back end of 2023, but maybe that's a little bit of a fluke. Who knows? Maybe they get brought back down to reality this season, but I think there still should be a pretty strong side. And at home, in a bit of a sellout crowd, you know, they've got all the rivalry building up over on social media, the two sides back and forth. It's going to be a difficult game to predict, I reckon, because they're definitely a real shot here, the Giants. The Pies, I think they're still probably premiership favourites, and of course coming fresh off the back of a premiership last season. So Collingwood, they're going to also be a really tough side to play against this year. And I mean, I didn't think their pre-season campaign was, you know, the most impressive of all time, but that's sort of what you get sometimes with reigning premiers. And even still not playing at their best against Richmond, they still found a way to win that game quite comfortably. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a really good game of footy, as mentioned a couple times already. And I've seen a lot of people tipping this to be one of those close games. Toby Green played pretty well in their last pre-season hit out. I expect him to have a pretty strong game as well in this one. Tom Green, Finn Callaghan, I think he's going to have a good season. And Collingwood, well, yeah, again, you know, you got so many stars in that lineup. Nick Dacos, he's definitely a Brownlow fancy. But I think in this game, I'm going to go, I don't know if it's the upset. More tippers are going Collingwood, but the Giants are favourites. A bit weird. I'm going to go the Giants to win this game by 4 points. I think they can get it done. Yes, I know I'm tipping against Collingwood in a close one, but I think the Giants opening round, it's not the biggest loss for Collingwood if they don't win this, considering it's away against a really good side. So the Giants by 4 for mine. My big call, I said Toby Green before, he's going to kick 5 more goals in this game. Well, there we go, everyone. Those are my tips and predictions for opening round. Just the 4 games, but of course, there were other things in this video that I had to mention, which obviously had to do with the footy tipping comp. So make sure you join that. The Fantasy League as well. The code's up on screen. And obviously, for the big calls, comment down below what you want me to do for next week if I don't get them all correct. I've only got to do 1 for this week though. But until then though, footy tipping's back. I'm excited. It's going to be a big season ahead for the AFL season. I'll see you soon though in my next video. Have a good one.